Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another 10 pens currently inked for this week. I think let's go through these briefly one by one. We'll go through them in a little bit more detail and then we'll do a writing sample. So from left to right we have a Danitrio and this is the Bamboo Story. We have a Pilot Custom Urushi in the Vermilion. We have a Danitrio Chinkin, Kage Momento, and this is on Takumi. We have a Danitrio, and this is the Maki-e Ancient Dragon with Flowers by Kogaku on Hyotan. We have a Ryan Krusac Legend 16, and this is the Dragon Slayer. We have an Onoto Magna Classic in the Chased Jade. We have an Esterbrook Estie oversized sparkle in the Garnet. We have a Montegrappa Bartolomeo Ferracina in shiny circles. We have a Visconti Blue Ripple. And we have a Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero Grande in the sand. So I think let's take a look at these pens in a little bit more detail. So this is the beautiful Danitrio Bamboo Story. This is a Urushi pen in Akatamanuri finish. I really do love the finish on this pen. It is a beautiful red of hues there. It is an eyedropper pen, so you do actually unscrew the eyedropper. This is a shut-off valve here, and that will either let ink out into the nib or close the ink off. Now, the nib here is an 18 karat gold Danitrio nib. This is a fine nib with an ebonite feed. I'm not going to open the barrel here because I will probably spill ink out everywhere. This is a really beautiful pen. It is a very large pen. It's a very thick pen. I've never actually measured the diameter, but it is one of my thicker pens I have in my collection. It really is a beautiful pen. So for me, this is a pen that I do love writing with, and typically I didn't like fine nibs. I have grown to like this fine nib. I also did tune that nib up slightly just to make it a little bit smoother when I bought the... Well, actually, it wasn't when I bought the pen. It was actually, I think, a year afterwards, because I realized I wasn't writing with a pen and I thought, should I sell the pen or not? And I thought, let's just try and take the crispness edge off of that nib, being a fine nib. And I made it write a lot better. So I'm really happy to be able to write with that pen a lot more now. But it hasn't been inked up a lot lately. It was inked up last week, and I have it inked up this week because it does hold a huge amount of ink. The next pen I have here inked up is the Pilot Custom Urushi. This is another Urushi pen. They call it the Vermilion color. It's a beautiful, beautiful Urushi. This actually has a Pilot Con 70 converter in. Again, it's quite a wide pen. If I unscrew the cap, you'll see it has a number 30 size nib there. So a 30 size is about the equivalent of a Western size 9, I would say, maybe a 10. It is a larger nib. It's larger than a number 8 size nib. But Pilot call it a number 30. This one is a fine medium nib. Can I post the cap? I can do. Would I want to? It is a massive wand, so I don't typically post it. Plus, it's Urushi. Technically, Urushi, once hardened, is quite a hardened surface, so it probably won't scratch, but I'm always careful about my Urushi pens, not wanting to scratch them, not wanting to post them because of that. The next pen is a Danitrio pen, and this is a pen that I picked up at the London Pen Show in March 2022. And this is called the Danitrio Chinkin Kage Momento on Takumi. So Chinkin is actually the sort of gold painting that you see there, or in a lot of cases it's actually like gold etching it into the pen, but you can see this beautiful sort of flower here and petals and the intricate details. And if you look at that cap there, you'll see that those leaves here actually change color. Beautiful pen. When I saw this at the London Pen Show, I just realized I had to have it. I hadn't even tried the nib, and this was something that I guess I realized after the pen show, is that I bought this pen without even trying it. And a lot of pen show vendors will not allow you to dip test a nib. And I think that would have been the case probably on this pen anyway. But irrespective of that, I hadn't tested the nib, so I had no idea how this nib was going to write. But I took a gamble on it, and I'm really glad I did, because this is a beautiful work of art. And I'm so glad that I managed to add this to my collection. So this does have a Danitrio Fireball nib there that you'll see. This is a fine nib, and it's a cartridge converter as well. But I do like this a lot. And again, I'm not going to be one to really post, but I can post that cap if I wanted to. It does also have Danitrio there on the clip, and the clip is functional. It does work. And to be honest, I don't know. I'm at a little bit of a crossroads. Like, typically when I've got a pen like this, I don't normally like having a clip on it. I don't typically use clips. I don't clip pens into my shirt pocket. So although it's nice to see a clip on a pen, I don't need to have a clip. So I kind of think this might look better without a clip, but it is what it is. And the next pen here doesn't have a clip. And again, this was another pen that I picked up at the London Pen Show in March 2022. And again, this is another Danitrio. It's the Maki-e Ancient Dragon with Flowers by Kogaku on Hyotan. And this is a beautiful, beautiful pen. So you've got the wind up here. You've got a ancient dragon there as well. And then you have the flowers down here. And it really is an interesting pen. And I have to say, I hadn't really noticed, but you've got some like leaves here. And then this bit here is actually in green. And I hadn't actually noticed that. That's quite interesting. So that's the first time in several months, I've actually noticed that. This is a beautiful Akatamanuri-like finish. You have the Danitrio Fireball nib there, and this is a medium nib. But that is quite interesting. Now, the size of the pen there is quite large. I could post the cap. I'm not going to want to, because, like I said, it is Urushi, and I typically do not want to post Urushi there. You've got the artist signature there as well. So that's an interesting pen for sure. And I fell in love with that when I was at the London Pen Show. Another pen that I picked up, and that was before the London Pen Show. This was my birthday pen, actually. I really didn't know what I wanted to buy or to have for my birthday. And I've always wanted a Ryan Krusac pen. And I saw a post from Ryan that he was having some health difficulties and some spinal difficulties. And he had actually posted that he might not be able to make many more pens in the future. But it all depends on his treatment. But he also said that he has a lot of pens made, but he hasn't had time to put them on his website. Reach out to him and see if there's one you want. Well, I reached out to him and he said, well, I don't have this one in a Legend 16. But he said, I'm making some for the next pen show. So he said, I'll happily add one to that order book and give you one or send you one, sell you one. So that's exactly what he did. And within, I think it was within 2 weeks he was able to ship the pen to me, and this arrived for my birthday. So I'm really glad that I got this. So this is an antler-made body with a wooden cap. Now the wooden cap you'll see here has got these like dragon scales on it, and then the antler is engraved and filled in with a dragon as well there. So this is aptly named the Dragon Slayer, and there is a guy there trying to slay the dragon, being breathed all over with fire breath from the dragon. The antler is actually a natural look, so it does not look 100% white. It will look dirty in areas because it is a natural antler. Also, Ryan doesn't lacquer and protect the pen. He prefers the pen to be in its raw state. So that's just something to bear in mind if you do want a Ryan Krusac pen. The section here is an ebonite, I believe, and the nib there is a Ryan Krusac nib. I got a medium steel nib put on this one. It's a cartridge converter. The cap kind of will post, but not very deeply and not very securely. I wouldn't want to post this, to be honest. I'd almost say that it's probably not designed to be posted. But this is a beautiful pen. So that was my birthday pen for this year, and I'm glad that I was able to pick that one up when I did. I'd also like to get another Ryan Krusac pen in the near future, so I may have to reach out to Ryan again and see the availability of another pen that he has. The next pen inked up is this one, and this is an Onoto, and this is the Magna Classic, and this is a chased jade. Personally, I wouldn't call it a jade, it's more of a bright green. The chased is this pattern here, which is what they used to do over vintage ebonite, and then this is filled in with like a silver paint. It's a beautiful pen. It is an Onoto. It's a modern day Onoto with a silver clip, and I do like it a lot. And yet, I wanted one of these for a long time, and I decided I would pick this one up. This is second hand. It was advertised as a medium nib. It actually turned out to be a nib that had been modified. It's an 18 karat gold nib, but it had been modified to be a crisp metallic, but it wasn't sold as that. So I did keep the pen. I was a little bit disappointed with the nib, but I managed to tune the nib. Now, the issue with this nib was because it was made into a crisp metallic, whoever actually ground the nib removed most of the tipping on the underneath. So there's no ball there. It's just almost a flat layer. So I was able to round off stub-like the edges to make it less crisp. Now it writes very nicely. It writes a little bit more like a broad nib, I would say, but it does write nicely. So I am glad that I added that to my collection. It was a good price. Unfortunately, though, the nib wasn't kind of how I expected it to be. And I think that's just a warning when you're buying a second-hand pen. You don't know, you're going by the description of the seller, and if the seller either hasn't realized or hasn't listed it, then you might not get what you was expecting. And that was certainly in my case. I kind of think that it was being sold cheaply because the seller knew it was a crisp metallic nib. I don't know, but I like the pen now, so I do like it now that I have tuned that nib. And I always harp on about being able to tune your own nibs. It is a very easy thing to do with a little bit of micro mesh. Ideally 12,000 grit. If you have a nib that is a little bit too crisp, you need to take a little bit more tipping off. 8,000 grit, then back up to 12,000. Do a few figure of eights. If you write cursive and you want a smooth cursive writing experience, write mango chutney a couple of times lightly on the micro mesh with the nib, with it inked up, and that will typically smooth the nib out. The next pen I have inked up is an Esterbrook Estie, and this is the Sparkle, and this is in the Garnet or red Garnet. Now, this is a really beautiful diamond cast material. You'll see that there. It has a lot of glitter in it. And I say diamond cast, it is real diamond dust. So that's why there is a manufacturer of this resin called Mackenzie Penworks, who manages to buy up ground up diamond dust from, I believe, the floor of jewelers and or the benches of jewelers, and they then put this in the resin material. Absolutely stunning. Esterbrook have done a series of sparkle pens. This has a number 6 size Esterbrook nib. It's a Yovo nib. It's a medium nib. I do like it. It has a metal threads here. It's a cartridge converter. It has a spring clutch mechanism, so you have to push in and twist. But that is a pen that I like writing with. So I have that one inked up with me this week as well. The next pen I had inked up last week, and it's this one. It's a Montegrappa Bartolomeo Ferracina in shiny circles. So this is a celluloid material. It is very hard to get hold of this now. Montegrappa do still, I believe, have some celluloid rods of this, but Montegrappa doesn't have a lot, as I understand it. But they can still make some pens out of this material. Bartolomeo Ferracina was a clockmaker, so there's a clock here, and that I do like a lot. It's a piston filling pen. If I unscrew the cap, you've got a solid silver section. You have a number 8 size Montegrappa nib. The nib is quite recessed. It's something that Montegrappa do a lot. I can post the cap, but it is very back weighted, so it's not something I'd want to do. The shape, the hourglass kind of shape of this pen makes it look quite uncomfortable to write with, but I find it very, very comfortable. So for me, that is a pen I like writing with a lot. The next pen inked up is this Visconti. It's the Blue Ripple. I always wanted one of these after buying a Visconti watermark, and I'd left it, I think, 3 years before buying this one, and I do love it. I love it a lot. I love this metallic blue. It's a silver overlay, solid silver, but you have these sort of chevrons cut out, and then it's coated in this metallic blue. Beautiful pen, cracked ice inlay. It's got a ink window. It's got the older 18 karat gold nib from Visconti. It's a medium nib. It's a power vac filler. I can post the cap if I want to. Again, it's very back weighted. I don't want to do that, but I can do if I want to. So I have that one inked up as well. And then the last pen I have inked up is this Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero Grande in the sand. And this is a beautiful material. It's a resin. Leonardo have since come out with a Mosaico, which is basically the same material layered, but then cut at 90 degrees. So it makes it look more like a mosaic. I do still like this sand a lot. I don't have a mosaic yet in my collection. This has a Leonardo box steel nib. It's a medium nib with an ebonite feed, but it's a pen that I do like a lot and I do like writing with. So I have that one inked up with me this week as well. So I think with that, let's go and do a writing sample. So the first pen is the Danitrio Bamboo Story. So I think we'll do an ink swatch here. And I do like this pen a lot. I do find that this is a nice fine nib now that I've tuned it a little bit. So this is the Danitrio Bamboo Story. Now it does have some feedback to this nib, but it's actually a pleasant feedback now. This is a fine, and it is an 18 cat gold nib. And then the ink in here is diamine, and it's poppy red, which is a beautiful bright red ink from diamine. It's one that I like a lot. The next pen inked up is the Pilot Custom Urushi in the Vermilion. So we'll do an ink swatch on this as well. Now, this is a fine medium, and I would say that it writes more like a fine, Western fine nib, because it is an Asian nib. So normally if it was a medium, it would write like a fine. So this is a fine medium, so I guess it kind of writes between an extra fine and a fine. I would say more of a fine. So this is the Pilot Custom Urushi in the Vermilion. And it is a fine medium, and it's an 18 cat gold nib from Pilot. And then the ink in here is Mont Blanc, and it's corn poppy red. Now, I've had a few people recently ask me, do I prefer a Pilot nib or a Maki-e nib? And in terms of Pilot, I've got some Pilot vanishing points. I've got an 823 FA nib, and then I have this Urushi Vermilion nib. And I'd say each of the nibs write very differently in terms of firmness. I'd say this one is probably the most springy, along with the 823 FA. I do find most Maki-e nibs or Maki-e nibs are quite firm. They are like a Platinum 3776 nib, unless you go with a soft medium or soft fine nibs. So to be honest, I would probably say at this moment in time, I like the Pilot nib better. The next pen inked up is the Danitrio, and this is the Danitrio Chinkin Kage Momento on Takumi. Now, I'm just going to actually write this as Danitrio Chinkin. We'll do an ink swatch first. Now, this is a fine nib, and I do find that this goes in swells of sometimes writing quite dry, sometimes writing quite wet. And I'm just going to take a look. Yes, it is out of ink. So I am going to, let's see how far I can get, if I can get through this without re-inking it. I will re-ink it though for this week. So this is the Danitrio, and it is the Chinkin. Can I get anything else on there? I could get Kage, Momento. And this is a fine, and it's an 18 cat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Pilot, Iroshizuku, and this is Inaho. Now, I would say in comparison to the Pilot Custom Urushi, let me show you here actually. I'm going to do a little bit of flexing there so you can see that. And I'll do the same with the Pilot Custom Urushi. So you can see that both those nibs are quite bouncy nibs. I'd say the Danitrio though is certainly, on this Danitrio, more bouncier. The next pen is the Danitrio Maki-e Ancient Dragon. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now, I do find that this nib is not as bouncy as the other Danitrio, or the Pilot Custom Urushi for that matter. But it does have a little bit of a bounce. So this is the Danitrio. And this is the Maki-e Ancient Dragon. And this is a medium nib, and that could be a little bit why it's not as bouncy. It's an 18 cat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Diamine, Wild Strawberry. And I'll do the same here. I'll do a little bit of a test. So you can see it probably doesn't quite have as much bounce to comparison to the custom Urushi pilot there. And it's nowhere near as much as the other Danitrio nib. However, it does still have a little bit of line variation there. So I wouldn't say it's a stiff nib, but it's certainly a little bit stiffer. The next pen here is the Ryan Krusac Legend 16 Dragon Slayer. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now, I could ink this up with pretty much any colour I want because it's a white or an antler coloured pen with a black cap. When I went to ink this up, I wanted a nice orange ink, probably something that would actually resemble a dragon's fiery breath. And I went with this one, this ink, and I do like it a lot. So this is Ryan Krusac, and it's the Legend 16, and it's the Dragon Slayer. And it is a medium, and it's a still Yovo nib. And then the ink in here is Noodler's Apache Sunset. Now, I probably could have gone with Dragon's Napalm, and that may have been from a better ink to use. But I also remembered how Apache Sunset shades, and I thought that would be quite a nice orangey ink to put in that pen, and I've stuck with it ever since. The next pen is the Onoto Magna Classic in the Chase Jade. So we'll do an ink swatch. Now, this still feels a little bit like a crisp italic nib. I do still feel it when I write a little bit, but nowhere near as much as it was prior to me tuning this nib. So this is the Onoto, and it's the Magna Classic in Chased Jade. And it's a medium, and it's an 18 cat gold nib. I was thinking about maybe buying an 18 cat gold medium or fine nib and replacing it. I'm not so sure that I will do that now because I've actually made this nib write quite nicely. It writes a little bit more broad, but I do like it. The ink in here is Diamine Apple Glory. But I do like how that writes. So at this moment in time, I probably won't buy a replacement nib for it, but it was something I was contemplating on doing. The next pen is the Esterbrook Estie Sparkle in the Garnet. Let's do an ink swatch. And I do like this pen a lot. It's a diamond cast material. I do like how this nib writes for a medium Yovo steel nib. I do like the ink as well. So this is an Esterbrook Estie Sparkle in the Garnet, and it has a medium steel Yovo nib, and then the ink in here is KWZ Beef Eater Red, which Beef Eaters are the guys that are patrolling or guarding the Tower of London. This was a London Pen Show exclusive ink from KWZ, and you could buy it at the show. So I actually have a few bottles of that now. The next pen is the Montegrappa Bartolomeo Ferracina in shiny circles. So we'll do an ink swatch. And I really do love this pen. I nearly didn't pick this pen up. So this is the Montegrappa. And it's the Bartolomeo Ferracina. And I'm not going to fit shiny circles in here, but it's a medium 18 cat gold nib. And then the ink in here is Diamine Earl Grey, which is my favourite grey ink. And being a grey pen, I just have to have that inked up with a grey ink. The next pen is the Visconti Blue Ripple. So we'll do an ink swatch. And I do find that this ink has a little bit of a tinge of purple to it. This is the Visconti Blue Ripple. And it's a medium and it's an 18 cat gold. It's the older 18 cat gold nibs from Visconti. And then the ink in here is Diamine Imperial Blue, which for me is a nice blue. There is Imperial Blue. There's also Majestic Blue as well. And I think I do prefer the Imperial Blue there. And the last pen inked up this week is a Leonardo Officina Italiana Momento Zero Grande in the sand. So we'll do an ink swatch. And this is a really, really nice ink. So this is the Leonardo. And it's Momento Zero Grande in the sand. It's a medium steel Bock nib. And the ink in here is Diamine Majestic Purple, which is a nice purple ink. So I think let's take a look at these pens inked up one more time. We have a Danitrio Bamboo Story in a fine 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamine Poppy Red. We have a Pilot Custom Urushi Vermilion in a fine medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Mont Blanc Corn Poppy Red. We have a Danitrio Chinkin Kage Momata in a fine 18 karat gold nib inked up with Pilot Washizuku in a Ho. We have a Danitrio Maki-e Ancient Dragon in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamine Wild Strawberry. We have a Ryan Krusac Legend 16 Dragon Slayer in a medium steel nib inked up with Noodler's Apache Sunset. We have an Onoto Magna Classic Chased Jade in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamine Apple Glory. We have an Esterbrook Estie Sparkle in the Garnet in a medium steel nib inked up with KWZ Beefeater Red. We have a Montegrappa Bartolomeo Ferracina in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamine Earl Grey. We have a Visconti Blue Ripple in a medium 18 karat gold nib inked up with Diamine Imperial Blue. And then last but not least, we have a Leonardo Momento Zero Grande in the sand in a medium steel nib inked up with Diamine Majestic Purple. So there you have it. That's my currently inked pens for this week. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye-bye.